Greetings, Mathies. This is Mrs. Mounts, and today I am going to cover how to solve one-step and two-step equations, which I get is probably a review, but it's the foundation of how we solve multi-step equations. Our first DCA of the year will be solving equations and inequalities. All right, so let's get going. First, a few jokes. I know I laugh at these all the time. All right, get my screen set up and we will be ready to go here. All right, let me get full screen. Okay, so you can see that it's solving one and two step equations here. All right, now how I teach this could be different from years past, but if you are having issues solving equations, to me, there's only two things you need to remember. What do I have to add to both sides to get it simplified? Or what do I have to multiply to get it simplified? So let's take a look at number one. Okay, so we look at the operation. We've got m plus 12 equals 10. So the opposite of 12 is negative 12. So that's what I'm going to add. I'm going to add the opposite to both sides. Now the reason why we're doing that, remember, you always want to get the variable solved by itself. Positive 12 plus negative 12, that's a zero pair, so we just zap it out. 10 plus negative 12, they're opposites. We end up subtracting them and take the sign of the number that's furthest away from zero. Well, negative 12 is furthest away from zero, so I know it's going to be a negative. I subtract 12 and 10, and I end up with 2, negative 2. Okay, now let's take a look at number 3. All right, so this is indicating multiplication. What do I have to multiply both sides by to get y by itself? So I'm going to put a 1 underneath. And so we are going to multiply by reciprocals. Now reciprocals is just flipping. So if you remember fractions, that's what you need to do when you divide fractions. You have to take that reciprocal, keep flip change. You probably have heard of that. So I am going to multiply both sides by 1 over negative 7. I put a 1 underneath the negative 91. I'm going to times by 1 over negative 7. Now notice I took the negative with it. The reason being negative 1/7 times negative 7 over 1, and negative times a negative is a positive. That gives us 1. Okay, and that's what we're trying to do, is just get that y isolated. All right, now 7 divides 91 13 times. But I still then have negative 13 times this fraction is a negative. So negative 13 times negative 1, you can see that there's two negatives. Two negatives when you multiply give you a positive. All right, now down below here, well, let's go ahead and go over number 4. Let's go over that one real quick. Okay, so I like putting ones, those invisible ones, I like putting them in place. This is indicating, I know it's indicating division. Okay, so what do we have to multiply both sides by? We are going to multiply by the reciprocal. Again, I always put ones under those integers. Any number divided by 1 is itself. We use a lot of those rules all the time when we're working on solving equations. 9 over 1 times 1 over 9. Okay, so there we go. That just gives us our 1. So I just kind of zap it out. A equals negative 4 times 9 is negative 36. All right, now I've already talked about this, but it says fractions. So when we're working with fractions, as far as the coefficient, Okay, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So I've used that word already. So I'll go over an example there. And on these, you just have to be careful of signs. We just need to make sure that we get the right sign. So number 5, this is indicating multiplication. So what do we multiply to get 1? It's called multiplicative inverse. We multiply by the reciprocal. And make sure you put a 1 underneath the 10. So we're multiplying both sides by 3 over 2. Okay, again, 3 over 2 times 2 over 3. That gives us that 1x that we need. And I'm just going to simplify fractions as we go here. Okay, so 2 and 10, they have 2 that's common. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Just to simplify here, and then I multiply straight across. 5 times 3 is 15. Okay, let's take a look at number 7. I am going to multiply, this is a multiplication, so I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, put a 1 underneath the 12. The reciprocal of negative 6 over 5 is negative 5 over 6. And again, the reason I'm doing that, this is multiplicative inverse. And multiplicative inverse gives you 1 when you multiply. That leaves us with 1k. That's good. Remember, we're solving for that variable. 6 divides 12 2 times. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so we're okay on the bottom. Okay, so some two-step equations. Just go over a couple of those here. So what it says to do, make sure you undo. Okay, and I'm going to just focus on addition. Okay, undo the addition. Or what are we going to add to both sides to make sure that we zap out the constant. And then we're going to undo the multiplication. Okay, and that has to do with the coefficient. So we're going to look at constants first, then coefficient when we solve these. Okay, number 9, I always like to draw my line. That keeps everything in balance. So if I do something to one side, I have to do it to the other. Our constant is positive 8. So what are we going to have to add to both sides to get rid of that positive 8? Well, I know the opposite of 8 is negative 8. So I'm going to add negative 8 to both sides. Zap. 50 plus negative 8 is 42, and it's a positive. And then I have, okay, this is multiplication. I'm going to put a 1 underneath it. What is the reciprocal of 6 over 1? It's 1 over 6. Now, fortunately, 6 does divide 42 7 times. Remember, 1/6 times 6 over 1, that's that multiplicative inverse, and that would give us 1. And that's good. Remember, we're solving for x here. All right, last one to go over on the video here is number 12. Draw your line. I'm looking for that constant. My constant is 7, and it's a positive 7 right now. The opposite of 7 is negative 7. I'm going to add negative 7 to both sides. That zaps. Bring down negative 3y. Okay, that indicates that this is the opposite of 3y. So bring down that negative with it. 34 plus negative 7 is 27. And it's a positive. We have more positive than negative. When they're opposites, make sure you subtract them. I'm going to put 1s under everything. I'm going to multiply by this reciprocal. Okay. And then what we have here, we have multiplicative inverse. That leaves us with a y. Negative 3 divides 27 9 times. 9 times 1 is 9. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. So our answer is a negative on that one. Okay, so we just have some practicing to do. Hopefully this reminded you a few things about solving one-step and two-step equations.